This is Anne and Sam. They've only known each other for about a half an hour. Together, they've answered a bunch of trivia questions correctly and have earned over $9,000. Now comes the tricky part. How are they going to split that money? Ideally, they'd split it down the middle, right? $4,600 for Anne, $4,600 for Sam. But these two people don't know each other. If you could take all the money for yourself, would you? This is the basic premise of Friend or Foe, a short-lived game show from the early 2000s. Teams of two earn money together, then have to look each other in the eye and secretly decide if they want to be friends or foes by pressing a button under a table. If they both pick friend, then they share the money evenly. If one picks friend and the other picks foe, the foe will take all the money and the friend will walk away empty-handed. If they both pick foe, then neither contestant will win anything. It's a great hook for a game show. Friend or Foe asks a common yet uncomfortable question. Would you trust a stranger? This is a path in the woods. At the end of this path is a cabin, and in the basement of that cabin, there's a princess. It's your job to slay her. If you don't, it'll be the end of the world. It's the image that greets the player at the start of Slay the Princess, a choose-your-own-adventure story where nothing is as it seems. It, like Friend or Foe, is built around the idea of trust. Who do you trust? Why do you trust? Are you worthy of trust? While it might not be the scariest horror romp out there, it speaks to a universal anxiety. The player will have to trust someone in a story where everyone is a stranger and no one can be trusted. Here's how my first run of Slay the Princess went. The narrator explained the situation, all this fuss about killing a princess and the end of the world. I asked him as many questions as I could, exhausted all the available dialogue options. How could a princess end the world? Can't anyone else do it? Will the world actually end? I didn't get any meaningful answers. We arrived at the cabin and went inside. A knife sat on the table. The narrator suggested that I pick it up, and I did, though I wasn't sure if I was actually going to slay her or not. I went downstairs. The princess called to me from the basement.
Who's there?
She sounded stern, though not necessarily aggressive. She sat in the basement chained to the wall.
And there you are. Are you here to kill me or something?
I responded with the truth. I hadn't decided yet. The narrator argued with my in-game stand-in. Should I drop the knife or hold it tighter? Is she really all that dangerous? I tightened my grip on the blade. The princess goaded me. Should I be scared of her? The narrator insisted that she's unarmed.
Hesitating?
Yes, I'm hesitating. I'm only like 10 minutes into this game and the narrator is acting weird, and I don't know what your deal is, and no one will tell me anything. Both the narrator and the princess told me to make a decision. The game wasn't going to decide for me. Okay, so, if the princess is unarmed, then it would be safe to get closer to her, right? I kept asking questions. There's people out there who think you're going to end the world.
That's cute. Do you believe that? Do you think I'm some sort of monster?
I suppose if I thought she was a monster, I would have slain her already.
So do you trust me, the prisoner, the victim, the princess clearly incapable of ending the world? Or do you trust whoever put me here?
I had stalled long enough. Since the game wanted me to slay the princess, maybe I shouldn't slay the princess. Though that would be an obvious bluff, wouldn't it? Okay, so maybe it's a double bluff, and I should slay the princess because I'm supposed to think that I shouldn't. Okay, fine. I'll slay the princess. But she was hiding a knife. She stabbed me, I stabbed her, and the two of us fell to the floor. We gazed into each other's eyes as we bled out. Moments later, I arrived back at the start of the woodland path. I had to do it all again. Slay the Princess is structured like a series of loops within a series of loops. Each loop starts with the first chapter. The player begins with the same set of decisions to make. After this, it will progress to the second chapter, another loop based on the player's decisions. Sometimes this loop will lead to another loop, or maybe it will end this particular story branch, after which the player is taken back to the start of the Chapter 1 loop to do it all over again. Each loop will have the same few elements: a narrator, a forest, a cabin, a knife, a princess, and the player character's demise. But each loop will play out in wildly different ways. If you do decide to slay the princess, how the player goes about doing so affects how subsequent loops will play out. Conversely, the princess can be saved in a variety of ways too. Every decision the player makes will affect something somewhere else. There is no one true ending. No matter which path the player takes, the conclusion will feel unsatisfying, like you did something wrong. It's hard to know what to do. It's impossible to know who to trust. In 1995, researchers Roger C. Mayer, James H. Davis, and F. David Shorman developed a model to explore trust itself. They defined trust as the willingness of a party to be vulnerable to the actions of another party, based on the expectation that the other will perform a particular action important to the truster, irrespective of the ability to monitor or control that other party. The person being trusted is called the trustee, and the person doing the trusting is called the trustor. The trustee has three factors that influence how they're perceived: ability, benevolence, and integrity. Ability refers to their technical skills or knowledge. Do they seem like they know what they're talking about? Benevolence refers to how loyal they are. Do they have some sort of respect or attachment to the truster? And integrity refers to the trustee's personal values. Do they share the same principles as the truster? Do they believe in similar things? It should be noted that what's important isn't the trustee's actual ability, benevolence, and integrity. Rather, it's if the truster perceives these attributes in the person that they're trusting. That, of course, is affected by the truster's propensity to trust. Does the person doing the trusting have a natural inclination to trust people? If they do, then the trustee's ability, benevolence, and integrity don't matter as much. If they don't, they're going to need to prove their worth in order to be trusted. If a relationship has trust, it will lead to some form of risk-taking. Risk is perceived, then a risk is taken. The outcomes of the risk-taking will filter back into the trustee's reputation. Mayer, Davis, and Shorman use the example of a business manager allowing an employee to handle an important client, as opposed to handling it themselves. If the employee has shown that they are capable, loyal, and share the same values, then they will be more likely to be entrusted with the account. If the employee does a good job, then they will be seen as more trustworthy in the future. But if things don't go so well, the trusting relationship will sour. In my first pass at Slay the Princess, I was unable to perceive any character's trustworthiness. Both the princess and the narrator just wanted me to believe them, and I had no reason to. So on the next loop, you bet I grabbed that knife and did not trust either of them one bit. In this loop, the cabin was jagged and dangerous. I hesitated, not because I was unsure of her intent, but because I didn't want to get stabbed again. I did anyway. When the princess revealed that she was a skeleton of blades wearing a flimsy human costume, yeah, there's no trusting this thing to not kill somebody. Each loop of Slay the Princess acts a lot like the trust model. The princess appears a certain way. The player assesses the situation. Risk is taken into account, then a risk is taken. The outcome of that loop will feed back into how the player perceives the princess the next time they see her. No matter what the player does, the world will end in each story branch. The player will be brought back to the very beginning of the story, a fresh start and a new series of loops. But the information from the previous loops is still there, isn't it? For all I knew, this was her true form. Okay, no hesitating this time. I'm taking the blade, I'm running downstairs, I'm not asking questions, I'm going to strike first. I slay the princess without hesitation. She slumps over. Wait a minute. Why does this feel weird? Was she not hiding a knife after all? Did we just stab this person for no reason? Were we not supposed to slay the princess and slay the princess? I mean, that's what the narrator wanted, right? What exactly is this narrator up to? In 2023, a group of researchers revisited the trust model to see if there is more to trust than originally thought. They determined that the literal abilities and characteristics of both the truster and the trustee affect their trusting relationship quite a bit. They also added contextual environmental factors. These include things like how long the two parties have known each other, if they belong to the same groups, or depend on each other in some way. If the truster and the trustee have some sort of common ground, or in a situation where trusting each other would be mutually beneficial, they will be more likely to trust each other. The player character in Slay the Princess has two relationships, both of which use and subvert common story tropes. The omniscient third-person narrator describes what happens to the character with limited knowledge. There is a defined hierarchy and common ground, though it's clear that the narrator isn't reliable and is withholding information. The princess is locked away waiting to be saved by a hero. If this were a common fairy tale, their roles would be defined and they would be united against some evil force. But that trope is mangled by the title itself, let alone the contents of the game. It doesn't take long for those roles to become meaningless, for the common ground to fall apart beneath their feet. And when there's no common ground, why should you trust someone with your own well-being?
You also have gone faux!
Friend or Foe is a game show about the trust between two strangers. At no point in the show do the contestants get to demonstrate how trustworthy they are before they decide how to split the money. It's just answering questions. When they place their hands under the table and decide if they want to be friends or foes, they're deciding the fate of a stranger. Each contestant has to ask, will the other person leave here with any prize money? Simultaneously, they will have to ask, do I want all the prize money or half of the prize money? There's a 50-50 chance of each contestant walking away with some money. If you do, wouldn't you want all of it?
Yeonju, you went faux! You went faux!
Came for money.
Friend or Foe is based on The Prisoner's Dilemma, a thought experiment that asks if an individual will prioritize their own well-being over another's. If you watch several episodes of Friend or Foe, you're likely to see all three results frequently, if not in the same episode. And why wouldn't you? These people don't know each other. They can't get a read on each other's ability, benevolence, or integrity. They have no common ground. What role are they supposed to play? There's a major shift that occurs in Slay the Princess. It's one of those slow twists that's there the whole time, but it takes a few loops before the player notices it. At least I did. The game presents the player as the truster, the person who is meant to believe either the narrator or the princess. But eventually the player will realize they're the trustee. Do you demonstrate ability, benevolence, and integrity to the other two characters? Do you come across as capable? Do you show respect for either of them? Do you share their same goals? Remember, it doesn't matter if you do or not. What matters is if it seems like you do. On my initial first run, I made my guy look as untrustworthy as possible. I picked up the knife, stumbled down the stairs, and asked a bunch of questions. She made comments about how my hands were shaking. My perceived ability was in the toilet. I certainly didn't seem benevolent either. I didn't do what anyone told me to. I was upfront about not sharing the values of either of them. In their eyes, I had no integrity. So there I was, an incapable, knife-wielding, self-doubting assassin. Why should my character have been trusted? As the game continues to loop, the events of the previous chapter affect how trustworthy we seem. In my first run, I had proven that I was untrustworthy in Chapter 1. There was no winning the princess back when I returned in Chapter 2. Conversely, when I went in unarmed in Chapter 1 and saved her, she fully trusted me when I returned in Chapter 2. How the player character presents themselves determines how they will be treated by the other characters in the story. Follow the narrator's orders and he will respect you. Save the princess and she will adore you. You have to be the trustworthy one. Although that's not entirely the whole story. In 1974, a set of objects sat on a table in a gallery in Naples. Lipstick, a rose, soap, a piece of bread, some yarn, an apple, an axe, a scalpel, a bullet, a gun. Behind the table stood the legendary performance artist Marina Abramovic. Her instructions: there are 72 objects on the table that one can use on me as desired. I am the object. During this period, I take full responsibility. She proceeded to stand motionless in the gallery for 6 hours, as members of the public were invited to do just that. Rhythm Zero is a piece of performance art that pushed Abramovic's body and mind to the limits. It put her safety in the hands of a crowd of strangers. The piece began easily enough. The crowd would move her arms, give her a kiss, or make her hold a flower. But it didn't take long to escalate. Words were scrawled onto her skin, her clothes were cut from her body. Someone sliced into her neck and drank her blood. They tied chains around her. Someone loaded the gun and made her hold it, then pointed it at her with her finger on the trigger, after which a fight broke out. Yet she remained still. For everyone involved, there was no way to perceive trustworthiness, at least not at first. Abramovic had no way of knowing what the crowd was capable of. The individual crowd members also had no way of knowing what their peers thought and believed. When it was clear that they could just enact harm and not face consequences, crowd members who shared the same ideals realized that they could trust one another. Rhythm Zero is a powerful piece of art that grapples with power dynamics. How far will people go when there's no accountability? Had Abramovic been a man, how differently would this piece have played out? How can you trust someone you don't know with your own safety? It was an ugly web of trust and abuses of trust, leading to a series of horrific attacks and assaults. In Abramovich's own words, "If you leave it up to the audience, they can kill you." As the 6th hour came to a close, Abramovich started to move. She faced the audience and took a step towards them. They all fled, terrified to face what they had done to her. The scary thing about trust is how easily it can be manipulated. If someone can appear intelligent or kind-hearted, they're more likely to be believed. In Friend or Foe, the whole idea of going on a game show is winning as much money as possible. In order to do that, you have to make yourself seem trustworthy. You have to look your partner in the eye, keep your composure, and pick foe. Rhythm Zero takes things a step further. As soon as the audience can trust that Abramovich won't react when cruelty is enacted upon her, they're quick to abuse that trust. But when that relationship changes, when Abramovich is no longer vulnerable, it's clear how untrustworthy the crowd actually is. When they have to confront the artist as a human that has been harmed, they have laid bare their ability, benevolence, and integrity. Had they left her alone for the whole 6 hours, they would have no reason to run. But that's not what happened. Slay the Princess tells the player that they are the truster, but their actions paint them as the trustee, though there's a dark truth that underlies the entire experience. What the player expects to happen will happen. The princess is a mirror of the player's choices. When the player arrives at the cabin in Chapter 1, there will be a knife on the table. If the player picks it up and goes downstairs, the princess will greet you like this.
Who's there?
But if the player forgoes the knife and confronts the princess unarmed, she will sound like this.
Hello? Is someone there?
If the player grabs the knife, they're expecting the princess to be dangerous. When they meet her, she's confrontational. Not picking up the knife implies that the princess is not dangerous. Therefore, she isn't. When they walk down the cabin stairs, the princess hasn't seen the player character yet. The difference in her reaction is affected by how trustworthy the player perceives their character to be. In my first bumbling loop, I was unsure of myself. I contemplated slaying her. It's only natural that she thought the same thing. She did to me exactly what I had done to her. If the player character picks up the knife and stabs the princess with no hesitation, the implication is that they believe that they are a powerful, capable assassin, and the princess will be an easy target. That's what they believe, therefore, it is. The cabin and the woods change with each passing loop, molding to the player's expectations. If you cut her out of her chains, she will have even more chains when you return. If she's able to play dead like an animal, she will appear beast-like later on. One of my favorite paths is refusing to go to the cabin at all. By doing this, the player sees all possible cabins and princesses all at once. If you never meet her, she will be endless possibilities. She is nothing, therefore she is everything. When Marina Abramovich stood in front of a crowd, she could have been anything. She could have been ignored. She could have been fed with the bread and apple. She could have been made to sit down and rest. Instead, she was physically assaulted and injured, nearly dying in the process. But when those 6 hours elapsed and she walked towards the crowd, they ran. It's a simple action. She didn't say anything, she didn't attack the audience in retaliation, but it was interpreted that way. They had to see her as a human, a person whose trust they had abused. She became what the audience imagined her to be. Every loop of Slay the Princess ends with the player character facing the consequences of their actions. They will either die, or the world will end. Fortunately, these results are impermanent. The player will return to that path in the woods. They will arrive at some sort of cabin and meet some sort of princess. They will have a chance to not pick up the knife, to free her from her chains, or they could follow the narrator's directions to a T. It doesn't matter, because they'll get a chance to try again, to trust different characters, to be trustworthy themselves, to mold the situation around their trusting behavior. Unfortunately for us, if we stab someone in the chest, there wouldn't be any way to undo that action. We can't go back in time to pick friend. We can't take back the harm we inflict on others. To make it to the end of Slay the Princess, the player has to betray someone's trust by following their gut instincts, or just by prodding things to see what happens. Either the narrator or the princess will no longer trust them. And when reality falls apart in subsequent loops, when what's left of the world gets swallowed in a void, there's an uncomfortable kernel of knowledge that you did this. that if you were just trustworthy to someone else, it would all be okay. You had to make a decision, and in doing so, you ended up breaking trust and hurting someone. This is the true horror of Slay the Princess. You are no longer trustworthy, and if you can't be trusted, how could you possibly trust anyone else? A few weeks ago, members of the I Am a Dot Patreon nominated and voted on their favorite horror games, and Slay the Princess was the winner of that poll. Huge special thanks to everyone who voted. If you'd like to support the channel, consider joining the Patreon for early ad-free episodes, a whole lot of exclusive bonus videos, and access to a lot of more cool stuff. This October, we've been covering a bunch of horror games voted on by patrons, and those videos are only at patreon.com/iamadot. Thank you so much for your support.